Our next presenter is Enzo Garantano. He's the president and CEO, of Infrastructure Health and Safety Association, the IHSA, and has been with the association for over 24 years in a number of different capacities before taking on his current role in 2016. Enzo is a professional engineer and a University of Waterloo graduate in civil engineering. His passion is helping all workers arrive home safely, healthy and safe every day. Prior to joining IHSA, Enzo worked in the construction sector with a large heavy civil and road building company, from on-site management to health and safety. He has further experience in private development in the ICI sector. Enzo is a father of 2 daughters and a son, and also enjoys mountain biking, the outdoors, and exploring new places, both local and abroad, with his wife, Millie. Welcome, Enzo, and thank you very much. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Patricia. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
And great. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen so we can start here. Yeah, you know what? Certainly the presentation around, being out in the nature makes a big difference to everybody's psyche, and I think that's something we should all continue to work on. But for having me here today, and really this is a team effort with OCal, and I want to really give a big shout out to John Odick and his colleagues at OCal for helping us work on successive surveys over a number of years here. So again, I've been with IHSA for almost 25 years, and we've seen a lot of change over time. But I did want to give you just a quick indicator of who we are. If you don't know who we are, we're one of the 4 designated workplace health and safety associations under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, plus OCal, plus the Workers' Health and Safety Center. So we're funded through WSIB, and we get it funneled through the Ministry of Labor to us on an annual basis. We've been around in one form or another, for about 106 years now, I believe. Started in 1915 with the Electrical Utilities Safety Association. It started, and then Construction Safety in 1929, and Transportation in 1942. And then we got amalgamated, the 3 of us got amalgamated in 2010. So we do serve the construction sector, utilities, and transportation. We have about 175 employees, and we are scattered all around the province, including a head office in the Toronto area with our administrative staff, a training center, about 18 classrooms, and then we have classrooms across the province as well, one in Ottawa, and in most major centers we've got facilities in order to provide services to our members. So a little bit of background about us. So why did we even start looking into a survey around a psychosocial survey, looking at our stressors in the workplace, in our own workplace at IHSA? So we had a change in leadership in 2015, 2016 timeline, and we wanted to look at benchmarking and seeing where we're at with our internal culture, what is impacting people's mental health, what stressors are out there, what are the relationships like, what is the relationship like amongst staff and management. We are a unionized environment. We're with the union is OCEU, it's WSIB's union, a QP union, and we've been unionized forever. So great partnerships in our abilities to look at things together and be able to work on things together. So our Joint Health and Safety Committee and others within our association, really in our dialogue at the Joint Health and Safety Committee and other, wanted to really find out where we're at with not only the traumatic issues that affect us and potentially illness issues that affect us as a workplace, but also the mental health impacts. So we did achieve the Certificate of Recognition, or CORE, and it's a health and safety management system. We did that in 2015, 2016 as well. And that system, health and safety management system at the time, anyway, we didn't really get into the mental health piece. So this was an aside to say, all right, with the change in leadership and where we were at the time, we wanted to really uncover first identify where are some of the sensitivities and areas of stressors, and then how do we work on them. So let's start by benchmarking. Let's get a survey going and identify where we're at. And that was the first task. And the Joint Health and Safety Committee worked hard and worked with OCal on a psychosocial survey that was available, that they were launching and promoting in Ontario. And it's a psychosocial factors at work survey. It's a Danish-based survey, and if there's any questions, John Odick is online as well and can certainly answer more of those technical questions. But there's also some additions of a mental injury tool group, another group that was put together to identify and validate some of the data questions and survey questions that are put out in this. So in a nutshell, when we look at what we did it 4 times now. So we did it in 2016, kind of the benchmark, if you want to call it. And then 2017, when we repeated it, we were able to really clearly identify, all right, where are the concerns, the ongoing concerns? And between 2016 and 17, I'll talk about that a little bit later. Obviously, we looked at 2016 data and said, all right, what do we need to do as a priority here on some really fundamental issues in order to look at improvements? And then the 2017 was really, again, to hone in on those areas of priorities. We did it again in 2020. We said, all right, we've got some working groups, new committees. How are we doing? Where are we at in 2020? And then, fast forward to 2022, we really wanted to look at how did the pandemic really impact things? We had a change in the way we did work. We moved to remote, home office based, rotations in and out of the office as things progressed through COVID. And obviously the exposures to people, exposures to the workplace. How did that impact the stressors in our lives, and potentially the personal things that also occur, such as loss of jobs by your significant other or family members, or remote school, taking care of kids, the whole 9 yards. So really we wanted to find out, all right, how did the pandemic impact our own internal issues, and how are we going to now address them going forward? So part of the survey is making sure that you've got enough staff doing the survey in order for it to be a valid survey. And within the tool itself, 80% is your target rate to give you the confidence that what the survey results are telling you is actually the sentiment across your staff. Again, with 170 staff, 175 staff or so, we were happy to reach levels of 85%, 86%, and the most recent was at 80%. So we did achieve that, and give us the confidence that what the results were actually, in fact, reflective of the staff's perspectives. And this is both staff and management, not just staff. So a couple of cautions, I guess, in regards to this is really to implement the survey at times of relative stability. So as a unionized environment, we do have collective bargaining. So we've made sure let's not do it while collective bargaining is on, because sometimes, no matter how smoothly we want collective bargaining to go, sometimes it could impact people's perspectives and people's attitudes. And we figured, let's make sure that there's no issues of that nature. We got through a big move in 2019 where we changed our head office area and brought staff together. So we didn't want to do it in early 2019. Again, making sure we have opportunities for people to get comfortable in their areas without any of those factors that may impact their perspective, short-term factors that may impact perspective. So we're looking for long, really foundational type of issues that we can work through, and that's what we were trying to get out of the surveys. So again, the other thing that we are looking at carefully is for the recent surveys, the comparison with Canadian reference populations, about 4,000 Canadian workers that were surveyed in 2019, and that's who we're compared to when we look at some of the results, which I'll show you shortly. So 2020 would be great because you're comparing, again, without a huge change in the environment, to people who took the survey in 2019. In 2022, comparing yourself to those in 2019 in other workplaces, maybe a little bit of a difference there, because pre-pandemic, post-pandemic could be significantly different perspectives in the survey outcomes with that. So saying that, I do want to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to show you some of the results, or some of the information from the survey, and I'll give you an insights into the different topics that were uncovered in the survey, as well as some of the results. And you'll see through the ongoing different surveys we did, the 4 years, you can actually see through what we like to call it the heat map per se, where the improvements are and where some of the issues that we still need to resolve are. And it's very visual and very easy to follow along. So saying that, I'm going to just switch and go to my other file. And if I can just maybe get everyone
Yes.
can see it. Great.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to just bring it up to the beginning. So again, this is the Psychosocial Factors of Work survey. It takes about 20 minutes for staff to go through this. There's a significant number of questions here around a number of different elements and factors, and we'll definitely go through those briefly. Okay, so we're going to just switch pages here, go to second page. And again, we had survey results about 79 or just under 80%, but John assures me that the 80% was, if we round up, it works. But again, we had about 85, 84, 86% in the past. So we're a little bit lower than previous, but in total, we had 139 replied of the 174. And we had to encourage staff, of course, and remind them. We gave them a period of time, approximately 3 weeks to do the survey. Again, because it takes 20 minutes, it's not something that we want people to take lightly. So we wanted to give them enough time to actually do the survey and complete it at their best opportunity. So I'm just going to go to slide 4 for a second. And yes, and what's great in here is that we do break out a lot of the information around demographics within our own staff. So if you look at the left, how long have you worked here? So we have duration of employment with us from less than 6 months, because we do have with the collective bargaining agreement, we do have people on probation for 6 months before they're deemed full-time, and then from there 6 months onwards, from 1 year up to 20 plus years. And you can see the numbers of participants or of those who filled out the survey. So the bulk of them are in the range of 3 to 5 years, as well as 5 to 10 years. Are you considered to be part of management? So management, non-management, 13 and 87% break. And where do you work, essentially? Is it corporate office, is it home office, or is it client-based? And when we talk about home office and client-based, we have staff who are consultant trainers. They're client-based, they're across the province. And we also have home staff, people who are deemed home staff, full-time per se, but also engage with our customers, and they may be doing program development work or what we call our labor management work, that kind of thing, where they're situated in the home office on a full-time basis. We only had 4% of non-permanent staff taking the survey. You see the age is swayed a little bit to the more mature. I'll use that language instead of younger or older. And then gender, we have male 61% and approximately 38% female taking the survey. I'm going to move right on into some of the results, which is, I think, what everyone really wants to take a look at. And I'll just back up a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got a 2016, 2017, 2020, and 2022 results. So like the top, if you can see the top, green is good, orange or yellow is average, and as you get into the red, those are areas of maybe needing attention and be able to identify some priorities that you may have to work on. So if we look at some of the demands, we'll look at, in this case here, demands at work. There were about four of those items in there: work organization, job content, interpersonal relationships, and leadership. So in 2016, again, with a bit of a change in issues, we saw a lot of, if you want to call it red, we saw a lot of what was deemed below industry averages here, and areas that we needed to work on, things that were impactful to issues that were impactful to the staff in a negative way when it's red, more green when it's in a positive way. And this is just the beginning of the list, but we have work individual interface and social capital, basically the vertical trust and justice and respect, a lot of red. And we said, okay, this is the baseline. This is the benchmark that we have to work toward improving. 2017, did it again, and we see some improvements. We see some moving from full red or into the orange or into the green colors, which is fantastic. And as we moved along to 2020 and 2022, 2020, I'd say, is obviously looks to be most of our peak best year. And I know John doesn't want us to use this as a scorecard at all, and definitely not as a scorecard, but as an indicator of where we need to put some attention and put some working activities towards. In 2020, we saw some significant improvements when you're looking back towards 2016. And then 2022, I'd say a bit of a drop back. And again, based on the 2019 industry or population that we're comparing ourselves to. What's great about this is we talked about demographics earlier, or chatted about that, and you can see corporate office showing a lot more red. And this is for the 2022 numbers. And we look at home office and client-faced, we're significant green. So again, if we're going to start picking, where do we need to look further and make some adjustments and dialogue further with our Joint Health and Safety Committee and others, is on the corporate office staff. When we look at management and non-management, management in certain areas we have some work to do, and in other areas it's more on the bargaining staff. Female to male, if you look at the far right, again, more work and effort is required. And again, when we look at corporate office, it's not a surprise that the female staff is also showing these red indicators, because or a larger percentage of the corporate office staff are female. So this starts to allow us to hone in on where we need to really work. If we look at further, there's some other factors on the next page. In this case here, health and well-being, again, giving an indication of the factors that the survey covers, from self-rated health to sleep, cognitive symptoms. It gets into offensive behaviors, people's perspective on sexual harassment, threats of violence, physical violence, bullying, discrimination. And again, if we look at vicarious offensive behaviors, if we look at 2016 and we move into 2017, 2020, again, a move to improvements. And the offensive behaviors, I'll chat about that, but that's certainly one of the topics that we thought we had good control over and ability to make some immediate changes to, and equip both ourselves with more information as well as opportunities to improve outcomes with our clients as well. Working conditions, when we talk about job security and enough resources, again, move from the red into a more greenish kind of level, and it seems to have stuck even with the 2022 changes. When we look at workplace culture, from management looking for causes to fear of sanctions, violence and harassment, effectiveness of our policies, those things have also, again, we've seen a marked improvement here. And if we look at corporate office to home office and client-based, again, we get an indication of where the efforts are going to be required moving forward, even currently in 2022. The great thing about the survey, again, was the demographics, and what we got out of it, and John did some further work here, is to look at the seniority level. And it's really interesting to see this. This is for the 2020 data. And we look at the less than 3 years seniority, significant green there is what we want to call, I guess, the honeymoon phase of being employed, potentially. And then we look at 3 to 10 years being a little more problematic before the 15 plus years gets back to the more, on the green side of things. And that's something, again, which gives us a clear indication of where we need to focus in our energies moving forward. And as I mentioned earlier, it's around these demands at work organization, and we can focus in on, again, which category is creating the biggest problem. And this is just an indicator of the rest here as well. The same categories, but with the seniority piece put into it. So I'm going to move back to, and I hope you can see it.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So the one thing what I didn't do is show you, sorry, I'm going to go back just for a second. Sorry about the flip-flopping, but I'm going to go back to slide 18 for a minute. If I can figure out how to grab this thing and move it. First, actually, I do want to get back to slide 8 just for a second because I think I skipped it. And that gives us just a little bit of an indicator. Great. As I said earlier, we're comparing ourselves to the 4,000 Canadian workers who took the survey as well in different workplaces. Workplace had to be a certain size, and certainly John can give you more information on that in the future if you wish. But we look at the different at this scale, and anything to the left of the middle and showing in yellow in this case here is about the same as the average in Canada for that population that took the survey. On the left, moving to the left and getting from green to blue means you're doing better than the population. So in this case here, this gives us a bit of a quick view of how we did in comparison to the rest of the population who took the survey in those same categories. And it gives a quick, again, indicator of where we're at and potentially where we need to focus. So again, very visual. The results are fantastic. We're able to run through these. And both staff, Joint Health and Safety Committee, management, we all are on the same page because of the simplicity and what we can see here. So, sorry, how do I get out of this now? I must have hit something. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to move out of here. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Oh, no, sorry. I said I was going to go to slide 18. Well, slide 18, essentially, without giving you too much, without showing it, because I'm going to get back to this, is essentially out of the entire results, it gives you a few areas of focus. And those areas of focus for us were given around, again, most of the topics that were seen, as you saw there, significant in regards to the patterns and the impacts on our staff. So what do we do with all this data? And this is really the important piece, right? It's great to have the data, but what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to improve your workplace situation? So in 2016 and 2017, as I mentioned, we had a working group of both staff and management, union representatives. The union selected their members, and we worked on a workplace violence and harassment and security areas or issues. We looked at some of the critical elements that were of concern to the staff, and they had to deal with working with difficult people. We are often working alone. We're working across the province. We're working with a group of people that we may have to fail in the classroom taking a course. Also, we may have to turn them back because they showed up an hour late for a program that requires them to be there for the entire day. So those things were really bearing on our staff. And so we ended up having training for frontline staff on the subject of dealing with difficult people and situations. We also did a personal security program for the staff. Anybody who was dealing with clients or the public at the front lines. We looked at the security of our locations right across the province and did an assessment, had professionals come in and take a look, improved some sight lines and lighting. We improved with security cameras and implemented security cameras in our locations as well. So these are the kind of things that initially, right off the bat, we did. But one important one was around the area of workplace bullying and harassment. We got all our staff. We said, you know what, do we really understand the subjects properly in order for us to move forward? So to make sure jointly, again, program was selected and the staff were asked to all take part in the training, adjusted and reviewed our policies and practices around that topic, and we're able to move forward. And we saw some benefits moving into 2017 to 2020's survey. A workplace mental health committee was formed, and that was a fantastic thing for us to do because it started to now entrench us in our own mental health kind of activities and initiatives that we felt we needed, seeing the results of the surveys. So again, 2020, we did see, as you saw there, some improvements in where we were at. but still work that needed to be done. And part of the mental health committee was going to look into a lot of those activities. And then the pandemic hit the brakes on much of what we did, but we did, from the learnings of our activities earlier and our certification under CORE, we knew even with the pandemic, keeping the staff engaged, the channels open with dialogue, input on our policies and practices, that we were able to utilize the staff in that and put forward our procedures with COVID, not only for our internal staff, but also for the external client who came into our facilities and we interact with on a daily basis. And that really, again, through the, was it perfect? Probably not, as we saw things through COVID change so quickly that sometimes we couldn't keep up with the timelines. But in the end, we did our best, and the staff did their best, and management did their best to work together on that. And I think that helped to maintain where we were at in the 2022 survey. But again, the 2022 survey was really specifically launched to look at those additional factors. Did the impacts on the personal side change things significantly? Were the stressors around just the pandemic and being exposed to biological hazards, to potentially, working from home and what that might cause people to think about losing their jobs? How did it impact people? And that was an important element of why we did the survey in 2022, even though we knew it was going to be a factor that, or it may be a short-lived factor. And now what we're doing is we are looking again with the help of OCAL is to really hone in on what's important moving forward. Let's really look into those three areas of corporate office, female, and those who have between 3 and 10 years of service, because those are the three categories that are clearly different than the rest and need some efforts directly. So right now we are contemplating, we haven't moved forward just yet, but we're contemplating those activities with staff around further surveys and further roundtables to understand how we can better improve those situations, those psychosocial factors that were demonstrated there that had biggest impacts, negative impacts on the staff. So saying that, a big shout out again to John and his staff in helping us work through this and guiding us along over these last number of years, and also to bring in those questions that we wanted to around COVID to cater those questions to us as well, and to try to understand how that we can move forward coming out of COVID as trying to improve our outcomes at work. So saying that, I'm going to say, are there any questions? And we can take that moving forward.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Enzo. Wonderful to see the shifts and changes in once you started implementing the different oh my goodness, your strategies, etc. Right. So,
right.
But what really resonated with me several times, many times throughout your presentation, you talked about dialoguing with the Joint Health and Safety Committee, engaging together. So I think that is fantastic, and the survey is really geared right towards having that discussion with all the workplace parties so that you can come up with the best solutions in moving forward. So that's wonderful. Thank you. We do have some questions here. We have a question from Kelly. Question for Enzo. You mentioned training for dealing with difficult situations. Did you introduce any new policies, or did you include a focus on fostering well-being in any performance reviews to add to the impact?
So we did change, we reviewed a lot of our policies, from code of ethics, conflicts of interest, whistleblowing, things that maybe were absent within our processes, even things like recruitment policies, and trying to improve the clarity around how we recruit and the fairness of it all. Those were significant changes that we put in. Our workplace our workplace violence and harassment policy changing significantly as well. Looking carefully at what was there or what wasn't there actually, and how we bring in a clear understanding of our expectations, joint expectations. Respect in the workplace was a really big one, is to make sure that we understood that differing opinions are great, just do it in a respectful manner. And maybe that was part of what wasn't happening. So a lot of those activities, certainly from policy and procedure review, as far as performance goes, just a little more clarity around. Well, we also changed. It's a little bit more complex with the performance piece because we changed methods of our review and performance of our staff. So we got away from some of the older kind of version that we were using and moved to a newer version that was based on our, typically what people 90, 120-day plans, that kind of thing, with elements of health and safety, with elements of performance, expectations, KPIs, that kind of stuff. So a little more clarity around those certainly happened from 2016 to 2020 as well.
And Kelly, I see you popped up on video. Was there more you wanted to comment?
No, I just thought it's nice to talk to a face. So,
oh, perfect.
Yeah,
excellent,
yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, Enzo. That was really helpful. It sounds like you've done really a set of transformational changes. So incredible to undertake, and kudos to you for working with your team there to get it done.
Thanks, and it's really a starting point. When we think about this, we think about just improvement and how do we find out where we need to improve, and this tool really helps to do that. And it's not just a short tool that just kind of skims the surface. It really gets into some difficult questions. And when we looked at the offensive behaviors piece, it's not something that anybody really can sit there comfortably when we see the results. And although the results originally were pretty decent in comparison to the Canadian averages, not acceptable in general, right? Unless it's some of those things are zero, they're not acceptable. And definitely all the staff had that same sentiment, and our desire to move forward and improve is what it's all about. And we'll continue to do that. So we'll probably do the survey again within another year and a half. We look at about an 18-month to 2-year maximum perspective. That's what we think is the right thing to do. And it allows us to gauge, again, where our priorities should be, if we've slipped anywhere or where we need to improve even further beyond where we are now.
Great. Thank you, Enzo. I think it's a testament to your commitment in the fact that you've got, like you said, 80% or more participating. It really shows that you're committed to making change in the workplace and committing to the workers and management, and just making the organization a better place to be working. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much for your presentation, Enzo. Before you go, I'm just going to ask if there's anybody that has any questions that wants to come live. I don't see any other comments. Oh, Val, I see you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I put a question in the chat, but thanks. So just said earlier that it's very valuable for us to learn how you've been able to make use of the tool and in a reflective manner, in an iterative manner too, I think. And so my question was around how that experience may have been informed your practice from an IHSA perspective in terms of workplace mental health resources and services and supports to the workplaces that in the sectors where you're operating.
Great, thanks for that question. We always relied on other sister association or system partner expertise around mental health, and what we clearly identified was if we don't get it internally, we're not going to be able to progress even with our client members. And mental health, certainly COVID showed us that there's more impetus moving forward. So we do now have a full-time mental health specialist. We had them on contract for a year. We brought them on full-time now. And their abilities to work with us in the mental health committee and create resources that are not only for us internally, but also for our industry, and help them move along on the mental health kind of pathway is certainly something that came out of this. Identifying the weakness and working towards a resource. And it's not like we have found money. It's about having putting the priority on that and making that happen through looking at our complement in general and saying, all right, we've got to get to this, so let's make it happen. Whether it's changing our process to become more efficient in order to find the funds to hire someone to do that. But that's what we ended up doing. So we've almost 2 years we've had that resource.
Great. And something you just said resonated with me to ask another question, I guess, is we use these reports so often to focus on what's red and what's orange, but I think focusing on what's green and even what's blue, if in the comparison chart, I think reinforcing the positive can be quite influential as well, or recognizing your strengths and continuing to build on them. So I don't know if you have any comment on that, on anything that you think that you were doing well and you've invested in doing it continually, or even improving on that, recognizing the benefit.
Yeah, we've looked at to your point, what is working, and in order for that to continue to work, what is the level of understanding, or what's the level of knowledge in some of those topics? Whether, when we have a lot of turnover as well, with staff retiring and new staff coming on board, ensuring that those parts, the training, that's clarity around what is workplace harassment, what is workplace bullying, how do you report, when should you report, really through our orientation program, we strengthen that. We definitely continue to work on also reissuing and reinforcing the training in some of those areas, or the policies, and through our policy review on an annual basis, and re-release them and have staff review them with what changes we've made to them. Again, reinforcing the good things that are happening, and then more potential focus on the new elements that we're bringing forward. So reinforce, bring in new.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Val, and thank you, Enzo. Thanks very much, Enzo, for the presentation today. And we'll keep you on the line if you're available to continue the conversation after our next presenters. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Patricia.